What's it like being a vegan in China?
It's interesting. Some people will say that it's super difficult to be vegan in China, and other people will say that it's a vegan paradise.
你觉得素食主义者跟佛教有什么样的关系吗？
我觉得有共通，然后有不同，但是可能两者的观念都对于生命有一种尊重，希望不去屠杀。
But I actually found it was easier to go vegan here in China than in the United States because there's not dairy in everything. Everything's not cooked in butter.
You know, you have a lot of vegetable dishes, but they're still cooked in like animal fats and so on. Like you get an eggplant thing, but it would still taste like meat.
What's it like being a vegan in China? And if China is a vegan-friendly country, hello guys, this is Aiden, welcome back to the channel. This video I interview local Chinese and foreigners who are vegan in China, and also someone who is ex-vegan. And also I'm interested in what's the connection between Buddhism and being a vegan. So I hope you guys enjoy the video, and let's go find out. Thank you so much for your time. Can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Alex. I've lived in China for 5 years. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, and now I'm in Beijing making vegan content.
I can tell from the earrings you're wearing.
Beijing.
That's how much you love Beijing.
I do. I love them.
First question, why do you came to China?
Why did I come to China? Actually, China chose me. I had a work opportunity. I was working online for a Chinese company, and they asked me to come over here. And bada bing, bada boom, I'm here.
Lucky you. How do you like your journey so far in China?
Oh, I love it. I don't think I'm ever leaving. Now I've set up my business here, and I think I'm going to be in China for the long haul. Also, my partner is Chinese from Beijing, so he doesn't want to let me go either. And then I'm also a full-time content creator on Vegan in China and on Chinese social media, 爱吃草的阿莲.
I'll take your Instagram here.
Yeah.
So what's it like being a vegan in China?
So I think it's interesting. Some people will say that it's super difficult to be vegan in China, and other people will say that it's a vegan paradise. I personally am more on the vegan paradise side, and that's why I have so much content to make and share. I do think there are some difficulties especially for foreigners coming to China. Language barrier probably is the first thing. But honestly, I think that's not a uniquely China problem. I think anywhere in the world, if you're trying to be a little bit different from the general population and you don't speak their language, it's going to be a little bit tricky, right? For the past 5 years, I've been studying Chinese cuisine, how it's made, how it's prepared, and just eating my way through China. And so now I know a bunch of vegan options, and I'm constantly discovering stuff.
What are your top 3 favorite dishes in Chinese? Vegan dish.
Oh, that's hard. My number 1 is probably chou doufu, stinky tofu. So before I went vegan, I was like a super adventurous foodie. I still think I am, but I've put a few little ethical limits on what I eat. And stinky tofu kind of ticks all of the boxes. It's a little bit weird. It's really flavorful, really strong flavors, and it's fun. I love seeing it being made, street snack culture, really fun. Oh, just recently in a night market, I had something called a 土豆丝饼, which is just shredded potatoes, and they're compressed together into this really crispy cake. It's just a textural sensation, just crispy on the outside, a bit chewy on the inside, and they sprinkle some mala Sichuan peppercorn on top. So good.
I watched 2 of your videos.
Oh, yeah?
One is the first time you try it, one is the second time. Second time you ask, oh yeah, of course there's no eggs.
Yeah.
I'm a real followers.
You are? Oh, I'm so flattered. So that's something interesting. I always have to ask questions, and some people will be like, who asks all of those questions? And I'm like, the vegan. When I asked the questions, I was always worried that it would be annoying. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a foreigner in China, and maybe people are excited that a foreigner is speaking to them in their language. But I've never had someone get frustrated with me, except for maybe in Hong Kong or in Guangdong province. I feel like their type of service is more get people in, get people out. Cantonese areas, I prefer to go to the vegan restaurants, but they have really good vegan restaurants, so I'm not complaining. Third food that I love a lot, this one's kind of basic, but it's always good, is baozi. I really love mapo tofu baozi. especially the ones that are fried on the bottom.
Really? I never heard of that. I'm from the south.
Oh, really?
We
Okay.
have like vegetable buns.
Yeah, vegetable buns. Yeah, vegetable buns are good, but my favorite is the mapo tofu. And then like when it's fried on the bottom. Oh, I love that.
Good to know that. I want to try. Okay. Thanks so much for your time. Can you briefly introduce your background?
Sure. My name's Emery. I'm an American who's been here in Beijing for 7 years now because I'm an American who speaks English. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? What's going to be sort of like the next big thing that I really need to pay attention to in my lifetime? I was like, well, I should start learning Chinese. And then a couple weeks later, I got the opportunity to come to Beijing. And I was like, well, yeah, I got to put my money where my mouth is.
How long have you been vegan or vegetarian?
I went vegan six and a half years ago while I was in China. I joked that I went vegan overnight. It just took me 5 years because for a long time before I went vegan, I knew that I wanted to be vegan, and I told people I'm probably going to be vegan one day. But like, I love cheese so much, I can't quit. I can't not eat cheese, mac and cheese or pizza or whatever, you know. My parents are both biologists and botanists by training, and they raised me to, you know, pay attention to science and we have this stuff going on and it's bad for the environment, and these are my actions that are supporting it. I need to align these things.
Was it hard to become a vegan person in China? I know like China is not, we don't have a really strong vegan concepts except the Buddhisms.
Yeah, so the Buddhist Chinese restaurants, you know, they're around and they're delicious. Overall, most people are like, you need to eat meat. Where's your protein coming from? It's very similar to the United States in that way, of people being surprised that you can, you know, survive without eating meat. But I actually found it was easier to go vegan here in China than in the United States because there's not dairy in everything. Everything's not cooked in butter. It's usually cooked in vegetable oil. All the breads and things, I mean, it's getting worse in some ways, but aren't made with milk. And so in some ways you just, okay, no meat in my dish, or no eggs in my dish. You run into some funny situations where they're like, you explain that you're vegetarian, you don't eat meat, and then they send out your dish with shrimp in it or fish in it or something. You're like, oh, no. I meant meat, including all animals, not seafood.
非常感谢你的时间，可以简单的介绍一下自己吗？
我是叫 Christine，A Lot of Vegan 克里斯汀是我的账号名字，是一个 vegan 博主。
见到你第一面，我很惊讶，你的主页说你39岁，但其实很多人不敢相信。
对，因为我就是这个年龄数字，这个对于我来说，自己是我就会觉得，我39我就觉得老了，可实际上自己内心也没有那么老，所以我其实是觉得，我们应该不要打破这个数字的束缚。我就说，这是告诉我自己，也是告诉所有的女性，真的不要被数字束缚。
有什么亚洲人保养的秘诀吗？
嘿，美女 Go Vegan 。但是说实话，我觉得吃很多蔬菜，吃很多超级食物，因为我自己本身是vegan， 是一个严格的 vegan。然后在最近，尤其是健身之后，我觉得一个是健身加吃素，但它就是健身加全植物饮食，我觉得真的是可以让皮肤变好一些。我这礼拜主要就会以西兰花花椰菜为主，那它俩里面有很多抗氧化的东西，而且蓝莓，因为我最近才学到的，蓝莓它居然可以修复运动损伤，所以就是对，所以我觉得这些知识就是你会发现每一天都有很多来自植物的知识，我觉得天哪，我说我知道为什么就是好像经常很多时候活力还挺多的，因为这些东西都是每天吃的。
今天有2个话题。第一个是为什么成为素食？
因为一头奶牛，就是我是因为动物，对，因为动物，因为我觉得，我确实不太接受动物成为商品，就是它其实可以不出生，如果我不接受，我就没有办法再吃。尤其是奶牛，尤其是牛奶那个可能对于我来说，我是一个女的嘛，因为之前也录过很多视频，我说啊，那个是我觉得最接受不了的，就是它不仅要成为商品，它的一生还要被强奸8次，然后它必须那样，它生出来如果是女儿，那女儿跟她过一样的日子，先长大，然后又这样，所以我觉得这个事儿是我无法接受，可是我以前不知道。
因为有很多人来到国内都会说，可能麻婆豆腐里面含有肉。有这样的问题。那如果是想来国内吃素的话，有哪些中国菜是素食的你会比较推荐？
如果来中国，我第一个先推荐的城市，你可以去大理。你可以去大理。 真的，大理呢，其实你会发现它的80%的菜本身就没有动物制品，甚至都没有肉末。很惊讶，它的那个比如它的早饭叫做那个叫做稀豆粉儿。稀豆粉儿，它是用豆粉熬得很稠的，有点像就是豆腐脑。它是用就是豌豆熬得黏黏糊糊，然后放上很多调料，再放上就再配着那个油条吃。它里面本身就什么就没有，只有盐，然后所有调料你都可以自己加。然后它的很多蘑菇，它就只放水。再一个城市是可以去西安，虽然西安是牛羊之都，但是他们的烹饪理念是肉的就是肉的，素的就是素的。全中国，比如就像很典型的麻婆豆腐有肉末和韭菜包子有鸡蛋，其实有点像标配。这是一个100%的定律，只有在西安。然后我早上，而且是我去了很多次，问了很多遍，我说哇，你们真的是没有鸡蛋？他说我们素的是素的，肉的就是肉的。我说太牛了！如果来中国，其实吃素满香吧，素满香在中国连锁那么多家，
超级。
对啊，又便宜又好吃。
Hi, I'm Dirk. I'm from South Africa. I've lived in Hainan for 5 years now. Well, almost 5 years.
What's it like being an ex-vegan in China?
I came to China as a vegan, and we tried to keep that up for at least the first 2 or 3 years. Became more vegetarian because it was just easier. Then we had a rule, okay, we can eat stuff outside, but at home we'll only eat vegan. But it is hard. I think the first few years it made me miss out on a lot of good Chinese food, because there's so many good like Chinese dishes that are, you know, based on a certain meat, right? Like it's either based on chicken or beef or pork or something. You know, you have a lot of vegetable dishes, but they're still cooked in like animal fats and so on. Like you get an eggplant thing, but it would still taste like meat. So I think we just realized early on, like, look, it's just hard. So you kind of had to accept that you're not always gonna get what you want. You can't be like a child about it and complain about it. It just, you know, it is what it is. You accept the culture and...
Why do you decide not to be a vegan anymore?
Well, just because it was hard. Because it was hard. And I mean, working a full-time job, and so if you get home, you don't necessarily want to spend the time on cooking. It's not that I don't like cooking, but at the same time, it's like you kind of don't want to. Because in China, I feel there's a big eating out culture. Like China is very based on restaurants, right? Like even in a small town like this, there's just tons and tons and tons of restaurants and takeaway places and things like that. Whereas back home in South Africa, like in my hometown, there were really only, and I'm not from that small a place, not a big city, but not a small town. There were very few restaurants, you know, you cooked at home. But here it's more about eating out.
It's very affordable, like eating out here.
It really is. It's not like, oh, I'm going to eat out, I should check my budget. You don't spend that much more than buying the groceries and cooking. You spend not that much more, so yeah.
Why do you decide to become a vegan?
I didn't go vegan overnight, but because I'm a foodie, I like to cook. I decided, okay, I'm going to learn to cook this way. So I set how do you say it in English? I set a challenge for myself. I speak 4 languages, so
I'm gonna ask for that later.
So I set a challenge for myself to only cook vegetarian at the time at home. And then when I went out to eat, the social part was the hardest for me. So when I went out to eat, I would eat with everyone else. I'd eat chicken wings, whatever. And then as I started to learn more about vegetarian cooking, I challenged myself with vegan stuff here and there. And I just really ended up liking what I was making. It was better than the meat. And I just remember one day my friend, I was visiting him in Paris, and he's like, I know you're almost vegetarian at this point, but I'm making lamb tonight. Do you want that? And for me, lamb, like since I was a kid, was like, oh, it represents Christmas. It represents my birthday. Like it was a very special thing for me. And so he made it up for me, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't, but... And it was like a light bulb went off. It was like, this doesn't taste like it tasted good. I'm not gonna like say my friend was a bad cook or anything, but I just made the connection in my head that in order for me to eat this meal, a cute baby animal had to die. And I was like, it tastes good, but does it taste good enough? And in my head, it didn't. So I finished the plate, and I decided then and there I wasn't going to eat meat again, and I haven't. And then just gradually, like similar situations happened, and I gave up eggs and then finally cheese. I had a big send-off on New Year's Eve, and we had a big cheese platter, and I was like, okay, when the bell rings, I'm vegan. And so that was back in 2019, January 2019, and I've been vegan ever since.
Would you like to tell people about your vegan business in China?
So after I went vegan in China, a culture that doesn't have a lot of cheese already, I didn't eat cheese for like 5 years, basically. I was running some markets for the local vegan community, and I met my current business partners who were making vegan mac and cheese. These markets once a month is my best day of the month. I love this. I'm finally eating mac and cheese again. We're China's only 100% vegan creamery. We're the only plant-based cheese in China.
What's the passion about the whole vegan cheese?
And so our philosophy is that we want to make cheese that tastes good first. Our cheese is healthier than animal cheese. It's healthier than animal products. With 90% of the population here in China being lactose intolerant, you're just going to feel better when you eat it. You can find us for Beijing, Tianjin on WeChat at Grassroots Cheese. In the future, we're going to be in the rest of China.
佛家思想里也有吃斋这个说法，你觉得素食主义者跟佛教有什么样的关系吗？
我觉得有共通，然后有不同，但是可能两者的观念都对于生命有一种尊重，希望不去屠杀。有可能他是因为自身想要达到更好，然后想要达到更好，所以他就在饮食或者是自己的行为上不是有戒律嘛，所以你像他们也可能也不会吃一些味道很重的蔬菜呀、五辛什么的，所以我觉得可能他要达到一个自己更好的状态。那如果说vegan 因为动物，那你可能只是说你坚持一个你自己的观点，那个观点可能它有点跟佛教里的戒律有可能有点接近，可是这个戒律是你自己给自己的，就是你更多的是因为你自己探索到，然后你看到了它又是一个很新的，你发现说，然后最后你发现可能这个世界跟你现在所相信的和所执行的，它其实有点相反，有点像逆流而上。因为比如现在吃穿用，你再去找没有动物制品的时候，其实都很难，然后有点像你在找茬。可是这件事情就是你要不要去相信你眼睛看到的，所以其实你再去执行的是你自己给自己去选择和相信的那个戒律，然后在这个过程当中可能就是因为自己的消费你没有去支持别人，再去因为你买每一个衣服或者是每一口汉堡的时候，你至少没有支持其他人，因为你这一顿饭去杀害更多的牛，去让更多的牛去滋生。
One more question.
Okay.
So, what's your advice for foreigners when I come to China?
China's one of those places where it's going to blow your mind in some way. And I think if you come here with an open mind, it's usually for the better. We hear so many negative things in the media. And I think it's just interesting to come here and realize, like, what things may be true and what things actually have been really exaggerated. And I think you start to learn that, like, the world isn't black and white, and you start to have a bit more critical thinking, and it's a really interesting place to live. And Chinese people are so kind, like, and especially if you learn the language, I think it's always nice to learn the language. It brings you closer to the locals, and it will just give you a better experience overall.
Since you mentioned the language, do you speak Chinese?
我会中文，对，我马马虎虎，但是还可以吧。
你学习中文多久了？
我学习中文已经5年了，但是我觉得我还差得远，对。
你很谦虚。
谢谢。
Okay. I think that's the end.
All right, wonderful, thank you.
If you guys looking for vegan content, please check out her Instagram.
Yes.
Vegan in China.
Yeah, you can find me on Vegan in China. Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying the video. To be honest, I think the vegan concept is not very strong in China, so you kind of have to ask a lot of questions. For example, like is the oil is made by animal fat, or like what are the ingredients? So if you don't speak Mandarin, just use the translator and don't be hesitate to ask a lot of questions. When I was doing research on YouTube, I couldn't find many contents about being vegetarian or vegan in China, and also East Asia. So I'm quite interested in making this topic, and also a lot of my friends are vegetarian or vegan. Like myself now, I'm trying to eat less meat. I don't know if I'm gonna be vegetarian in the future, but I definitely agree there's a better lifestyle. And also, if you're thinking about coming to China, we have a lot of fruits and vegetable options, like different, just more variety, you know, and there's super cheap. So I think that's like a big pros of being vegan in China. Thank you for watching again. So if you're interested in coming to China, my content will be very useful for you and also for learning Mandarin purpose. So I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao!